So as you can see, we've got a new vivarium behind us. Now I'm not going to do a build on that today, however, we did get this guide with it, and in here are 5 species care guides, and I thought I would do a reaction to these care guides starting with the Leopard Gecko. Let's see if they get things right. I'm David, this is Lana, welcome to DJL Exotics. So this care guide has been written by Exoterra, the creators of the Vivs back here. These are excellent Vivs. I'm not going to discredit the Vivs. They are fantastic. They come in 2 foot, 3 foot and 4 foot. I'd really recommend that you're getting mostly 3 foot and 4 foot for everything but the smaller snakes. Apart from that, they do other great products like heat mats and lamps and UV and things like that. They are a really good brand. So there's nothing against the brand here. But let's have a look at the care guides that they include in this book. And we're going to start with Leopard Gecko because, you know, we're very good on Leopard Geckos in here. So we've got bearded dragon and corn snakes, things like that. But we'll go through those ones later. Right, so let's go through it to start with. To start with, leopard geckos are about 6 centimeters long when they hatch and grow to an adult size of 20 to 25 centimeters. Yeah, that's pretty much right. Their common name comes from the adult coloration of a wild species. Yep, again. So this is Lana. Lana is actually a max node, but you can see the kind of patterning that they would have in the wild. The max node is just a little bit duller, so they'd be a little bit more yellow as a wild type. But Lana here is pretty much what a wild type looks like, just a little duller. So you can see where the leopard gecko comes from. Absolutely perfectly right. Leopard geckos are one of the few geckos with eyelids. Again, absolutely correct. Hence their Latin name. A healthy gecko has a fat tail, and you should avoid buying one with a thin tail. Yep, again, that's right. When you're going to buy a leopard gecko, what you're looking for is one that's about as thick as their neck. Right, next one. Their lifespan is 8 years or more. Okay, that's not technically correct. Well, technically it is correct because it is or more. The average lifespan of a leopard gecko is about 15 years. Males tend to live for a little bit more than females. The males tend to live to about 15, females about 14 years. But these guys can live up to 28 years. We have covered that in another video, so you can actually have a look at that one. So 8 years, you're kind of cutting off 20 years off their life there by saying that. So I would not agree with that one. So yeah, it is a long-term investment, getting a leopard gecko, but they give you years of fun. Okay, facts and information. Origin. Leopard geckos are native to Pakistan, Afghanistan, India and Iran. Yep, absolutely right. Where they are found in harsh, arid, mountain and desert regions. Yeah, not really desert regions, but definitely arid, savanna kind of grasslands, things like that. So, you know, I'd give them that one. It is quite dry where they are. They are nocturnal. No, they're crepuscular. And that means dawn or dusk. Ground-dwelling lizards, yep, and take cover during the heat of the day. Absolutely right. They do not have adhesive toe pads of other geckos. Yep, that's again true. They can't climb up glass like the crested gecko can. Benefits of keeping. Leopard geckos are ideal lizards for the first-time keeper as they do not grow particularly big. I wouldn't say that's a particularly great reason to have them, because there are lots of geckos that don't grow particularly big, like vipers and frog-eye geckos, morning geckos. They're pretty tiny, and just their size is not particularly a reason to get them because they can be more fragile as smaller individuals. I wouldn't particularly put that as a reason. Are very hardy, yes, that's correct. Easy to keep as long as you get everything right, yes, and very attractive looking. Well, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I think they're very good. I think they're very attractive, and you can get lots of stunning morphs and patterns which allow them to be a stunning part of the family. So they do look good. So I would say yes, they do look attractive, but other people don't like the looks. That's not, again, it's not a reason. Just because they look pretty is not a good reason to buy a pet. They are ideal for older children as they are placid and soon become accustomed to handling. Soon become accustomed? Really, they should be accustomed before you get them. We handle our geckos every single day, so they are accustomed to handling. You still sometimes struggle with handling when you bring one home, and that's often due to confidence. You just need to build your confidence up and let the gecko know. But also, geckos do have favourites. They do choose their people, and I have told stories before of one gecko that screamed at me, but a little girl came in and picked it up straight away, and the gecko had no problems. They do choose their owners as well as we choosing them. So always go to places where you can choose between the geckos instead of just picking one out of a vivarium or glass terrarium and saying, yeah, okay, that one. That's not very good. They require little maintenance and the overall costs involved are low, which makes them highly recommended for beginners. Okay, they are very easy maintenance. I wouldn't say it's low maintenance like with any animal. You do need to put in the time. In terms of cost, we have done a cost video. You are looking at even a basic setup somewhere and the gecko somewhere between £200 to £300, even with cost savings. You know, you're looking at about $400 in the US. It depends what gecko you go for, where you buy it as well. But yeah, they're pretty much... okay, so they're not going to be as expensive, say, a high-end ball python or a high-end... Well, corn snakes can be quite cheap. Some of the other bearded dragon can be quite expensive. So yeah, there are iffy on that one, but yeah, quite close. Leopard geckos have been bred in captivity for many years, absolutely correct, resulting in many interesting colour variations and are most common lizard kept. Yet again, pretty much accurate there. Rough handling can occasionally cause a leopard gecko to shed its tail, and while this will grow in time, it will not look as nice as the old one. Yeah, I would say rough handling would do that in a way, but it's not. It's very rare. It's not a common thing. But rough handling just shouldn't be done anyway. I don't know why you would say that that's a risk, because you should be teaching to properly handle the leopard gecko. Housing. It is possible to start with a smaller pen, such as an Exoterra faunarium. For a hatchling, yeah, technically yes. I would say it's unnecessary. I would say that's an added expense. You could just literally go straight to a vivarium. 3 or 4 foot would be absolutely fine. And then upgrade to a terrarium when they grow larger. Yes, but you are looking at that upgrade within 9 months of actually the gecko age, because that's when they start maturing, that's when they get to be full size. So it's really not a cost saving, you're still doing that within a year. So I would personally sit there and say, just go for your 3 foot, 4 foot, it's fine. There are ways to save money. Okay, also they use the term terrarium, which is a little bit wrong. It should really be vivarium. A terrarium really is talking about the glass enclosures. Glass isn't very good at keeping heat. These guys need good heat. Therefore, you're actually going to be spending more money on your electricity bill by using glass. If you use a wooden vivarium, then that is actually going to maintain the heat a lot better. It also hides 3 sides, so you've got more security for them. It makes them feel a bit more secure. It's also rather interesting. I think the wooden vivariums are better. It's quite funny that it says terrarium in here when it came with a vivarium. Anyway. Next one, they can be kept singly in pairs or in groups. No. Leopard geckos in the wild are in what's called loose colonies, where there's a lot of them in an area, but they all kind of have their own home. They do share a toilet corner, but in captivity they don't get the distance they need. So what tends to happen is that there's either over competition or 2 will fight. This isn't limited to gender, so males are more likely to, but females will do it just as well, and they will outcompete each other for food. One may get over, one may weigh more, and another may not get the food it needs. But as males are aggressive, only 1 male per group. Again, yeah, that is accurate. You can't have 2 males in an enclosure, they will fight, or do press-up competitions, or both. Definitely never 2 males within 1 enclosure, but again, I wouldn't keep females in together. There is a slight difference between male and females in appearance. Males are slightly more heavy-bodied and have a row of enlarged femoral paws running along the inner thigh. Yes, the paws is accurate. Not sure about the heavy-bodied. To be honest, there is very little difference between some of our females and some of our males. It may be because we're breeders and the females have the eggs on the side of them quite a lot of the time. I wouldn't really say there's much difference apart from the underside. And it's also they get 2 bulges at the base of the tail, which is the male parts essentially. Substrate and furnishings. As these geckos originate from very arid conditions, that is correct. It is important to provide a suitable environment. Yeah, absolutely, that is important. Exoterra sand is ideal as a substrate. Sand is not the best substrate. A sand soil mix is probably better. Paper towel is quite good if you want to have something that's very, very easy to clean. Larger stones can be added to create a more realistic rocky desert terrain. Yeah, that's pretty good. At least 1 hide per gecko should be included. No, 2 hides per gecko. You want 1 at the warm end and you want 1 at the cold end. You also really want to have a mist hide in there. Remove all droppings and clean the terrarium on a regular basis to prevent disease. Yes, pretty much. That's maintenance. I wouldn't say that's substrate and furnishing though. Heating. Leopard geckos need a hot area of around about 32 degrees with a background daytime temperature of 27 degrees. Yep, pretty accurate. At night, temperature should drop to about 21 degrees, and this is centigrade. That's 90 Fahrenheit for the hot end, 80 Fahrenheit for the background temperature, and 70 Fahrenheit for the night time. This is when they move about most and feed. So I would actually disagree with this. Depends how you're heating the enclosure. Geckos do require heat still at night if they're going to digest. If you feed them at night, that's when they're digesting, and if you don't give them enough heat during the night time, what can happen is that they will refuse to eat because they've got nothing to digest, and it will just go bad in their stomach. So you really do need to maintain a good heat source throughout the night. I know in the wild that these guys can experience temperatures going down as low as 5 degrees at night time. This is often when they go quiet, go a little bit more quieter. So personally, I would say that you need to have a heat source that will maintain 32 degrees at all times, just to allow them to digest. You can do some slight variance at night, so maybe go down to 28, but I would never go down lower than 27 for the hot end. 28 is the minimum I would go down. The cool end should be around about 23, 24 degrees. Get that thermoregulation. Okay, one of the best methods of heating for leopard geckos is an exoterra heat rock. No, heat rocks are really, really bad. The problem with heat rocks is that they're a bit like a radiator, but with no control on them. So they will just keep on heating, and they can get really silly degree temperature. So they're talking about having a 32 degree. These heat rocks can get to 40 or even 50 in theory. Your leopard gecko, it can detect the heat, but it can't detect when it's too hot. So what happens is that it will go to the heat rock and it will sit on the heat rock and it will burn. It's a bit like the ceramic bulbs. These get really, really hot too. And if you don't have those in a cage, then the gecko can come in contact with a ceramic bulb or even the halogen bulb and burn itself that way, even though the temperature on the bottom will be 32. And this is why heat rocks should be banned, and you should always have a cage around any bulbs, because basically they get too hot and a burn to a gecko can get infected and it can cause early illness. Do not use a heat rock, basically. Choose an appropriate size for your terrarium and position towards one end of it. Yep, that's correct. With any heat source, you want to make sure that you've got the right size and you've got it towards one end. Underneath the basking lamp, if used. So they're going to use the basking lamp and a heat rock. So I guess what they do have a good point there, that leopard geckos do need to have a belly heat, but it's better suited with a heat mat, and I really recommend that you use a heat mat every time, and then you can supplement it with either a ceramic bulb or a halogen light, bearing in mind that the halogen light needs to be turned off at night. So that's how you might get that night daytime temperature difference. A digital thermometer should be placed near the hot end and one on the cool end of the terrarium to check the temperatures are correct. Yes, but you should also have a thermostat, and if you're using a bulb, that needs to be connected to a dimmerstat. This is really important because otherwise it will overheat, and this is the problem with heat rocks, that you actually can't maintain that because the probe can't sit on the heat rock, it kind of sits next to it, so therefore it doesn't record the temperature of the heat rock, it just records the temperature around it, and heat rocks aren't very good at warming the air, they just warm a surface. So that's why you shouldn't use a heat rock. But any heat source that you're using within a vivarium needs to have a thermostat if it's a heat mat, or a dimmerstat if it is a ceramic bulb or halogen bulb. Light source such as the glowstone basking light could be used as a heat source. Yeah, this should also be fitted to a timer to give 12 hours day-night, and this will help with the temperature drop required at night time. Yeah, that's quite right, but just not with a heat rock, just with a heat mat. Lighting. Unlike many reptiles, they do not need special UVA or UVB lighting. Now, UVA is actually heat. UVB is what really we're talking about here. It's quite true, these are crepuscular, they don't require it, but they do need the UVB inside their diet. So you're looking at making sure that they've got the supplements, which you dust. I'm sure they'll go through that because we've still got the feeding to go. Yes, they've developed to be mostly nocturnal. Again, they're crepuscular. In fact, too much UVB can cause them eye problems and also skin problems. They are actually right there. Too much UVB. So a lot of people give them the desert, which when they said desert earlier before, people will then go and buy the desert UVB, which actually is primarily for animals like ackies or bearded dragons. Not for leopard geckos. Leopard geckos need for 7%, not for 10%. If in doubt, don't get UVB and just give it to them in the diet. So yeah, it gives a couple of options. So we've got Sun Glow or the Repto Glow, fluorescent tube. Set on timer to give 12 hours daylight can be used. 12 hours, yeah, you could do. I would probably say at maximum 8 hours. Again, these guys can actually get cracked skin if exposed to too much UVB. And if your gecko doesn't like to hide away, then that can cause problems long term. Again, that's also the case if you give it too strong a UVB. The Repto Glow 2.0 does not have high levels of UVB. Yeah, that's actually quite a good point there. A night glow bulb could be used to assist nocturnal viewing if desired. No, don't give any lights at night because it messes up their kind of daytime kind of schedule. Just don't give them that. Exoterra canopies provide an easy solution to lighting your terrarium. So this is they put a terrarium, so they're talking about a glass. This is more used in America than it is in the UK. But I would still go with a vivarium. They're much better, and you can get all the fittings on the inside. You know, we've got terrariums here. Water. Geckos do not require much water. Kind of do. Most reptiles do. I do see them drink. But a shallow bowl of clean water should be provided. Yeah, that is absolutely right. I wouldn't say shallow, just normal kind of what you would give to maybe a hamster. Kind of that kind of size. Hamster plastic water bowl is perfectly fine with these guys. You can get some fancy ones as well. Young ones can be gently sprayed and will drink the droplets. I've never seen that. Water bowl. You can get like mini tiny ones if you're worried about it. But yeah, definitely get a water bowl. Do not spray them. Barking geckos, crested geckos, morning geckos, they will drink the droplets and won't use water bowls. Chameleons won't use water bowls. But leopard geckos, they certainly do use water bowls. They actually lick it like a dog. Quite nice, really. Diet and feeding. Feeding leopard geckos is very easy. Most of the time. There are some which can get quite difficult. They will take a wide variety of insects. Yep, that is true. They will take a lot of different types of insects. Anything that moves in the wild, they will go even for scorpions. So they are very good. They will even eat sometimes baby mice. Crickets are their main food. Yeah, that could be one of their staples. The other options are mealworms, locusts. If you want to use roaches, I find that sometimes leopard geckos struggle with those. But they will also eat small locusts, like I said. Waxworms and mealworms only feed the latter in small quantities. So let's talk about mealworms that you should feed in small quantities. Actually, mealworms could be a good staple for them. Waxworms, on the other hand, are not a great source of food. They are essentially chocolate to these guys, and it'd be like feeding Easter eggs or chocolate bars to our cells constantly. They do get addicted to them. They won't eat anything else, and they don't get much nutrition. I tend to tell people to avoid waxworms wherever possible. Feed baby geckos a good meal every other day. No, feed baby geckos every day. They should be fed every day but one. And adults 2-3 times a week, 3 times a week. In fact, if you got every other day, that is actually only 3 times a week. So it's basically saying give the babies the same amount as the adults. No, feed the adults 3 times a week. We feed Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and the babies get fed every day but Sunday. It is important not to overfeed and make sure that all the food has been eaten before you offer more. Yes, pretty much. Okay, yeah. Make sure the crickets you feed are not too big. A good size is to feed ones no bigger than the distance between your gecko's eyes. Again, absolutely fantastic option there. That's the same with most reptiles. All insects should be well fed so that they contain maximum nutritional value when fed to the geckos. Perfectly true. They normally come with food such as bran in the container. Not always true, sometimes they don't. But using things such as cucumber, carrot, potato peelings, so things like that you would throw away in the kitchen are absolutely fantastic nutritional valuation for the live food, whether it's crickets or mealworms or locusts. They will eat that up and then that will get transferred into the gecko. Once a week before offering them to the lizard, insects should be dusted with good quality reptile mineral vitamin supplement powder. Yes, you can do. The best way to do this is for mealworms. Put mealworms in a bowl and then dust the mealworms on top. Do not use the bag and shake because that actually can cause the insects to be completely coated in the supplement, which can block their air holes when they breathe through their skin, which can cause anaerobic respiration, which causes acidity buildup, and the geckos don't like that. If you do the little sprinkling over them when they're in the bowl, they actually maintain a side which they can breathe through, which stops that. It's not actually too bad, but yeah, go with that one. Exoterra cricket feeders are perfect as a container to dust them in, and they will use it to allow their slow release into the terrarium. No, don't do that, because then you don't know how much your gecko is eating. Leopard geckos will benefit from having a small dish of calcium. Yes, this is actually true. They will actually eat the calcium themselves. So put it in a little bowl, or use a food bowl and put the calcium in the bottom, and then put the mealworms and things on top. That's absolutely fine as well. Calcium carbonate powder or grated cuttlefish. Make sure that your supplement has D3 in it and vitamin A. These are two of the nutritional elements which are often missed out and causes MVD and eye problems and skin problems, all sorts of things like that. Remember, we only use Nutribol. It's something that we specifically recommend to all new owners of leopard geckos. Available at all times, yeah, okay. Shedding. The most common problem with leopard geckos is with skin shedding. Like all reptiles, leopard geckos shed the outside layer of skin regularly. Yes, babies will do it about once a month, adults once every 3 months, unless it's mating season, where I tend to find that the males will do it twice very quickly. Unlike snakes, the discarded skin is normally eaten and is rarely seen. Again, that is absolutely true. Most people wake up in the morning to see that their gecko has gone from a dull shade of duller colours to looking really bright, and that's just they've shed overnight. On occasion, however, the skin can be stuck around their toes or eyes. Again, absolutely accurate. The other place is on the tip of the tail. These are just common elements. If your gecko is having problems shedding, give it a spray with tepid water. Yeah, that can actually work sometimes. Or place it in a separate box with some damp kitchen roll. If this does not work, seek further advice from your pet shop, reptile society or breeder. Yeah, you could also bath them. We have talked about shedding issues in another video. A shedding box with damp moss or vermiculite. Damp moss will do fine. You could also use damp soil or damp paper towel, as long as you're keeping it damp. Should be provided and could also double up as an additional hide. Yes, but that would be a third hide. You're not relying on it as one of the two, but that is absolutely fine. So what would I rate this? It's okay in parts. They get the age wrong, they get the keeping in groups wrong, don't do that. The heat rock is wrong, UVB is kind of accurate. Feeding, it goes a bit wrong with recommending waxworms, I wouldn't do that. But apart from that, it looks okay. But again, this is one of the reasons why you should speak to a breeder about how they keep their leopard geckos, or you should speak to other people who've kept leopard geckos. Remember to read online guides, watch care guide videos such as our own leopard gecko one, and generally talk to people. It's not bad, but it's not great. You could go wrong with this quite quickly. Certainly if you put 2 or 3 leopard geckos in the same enclosure, that's going to go wrong very, very quickly. But apart from that, it's not too bad. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Let us know in the comments below if you think we should do the other 4 care guides. And apart from that, thank you very much. Like, share and comment on the video, and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for now. See you later.